Here.
Present.
Here and present. Okay. We had the minutes of the October 20th meeting mailed to us. Any questions on those minutes? Any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve those minutes.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same set. Bill was not here, so he just excused himself. AEP and easements, just for you guys as information, we have not done anything on it yet, but we have a meeting set up for Thursday. This
You're talking about alleys kind of thing?
Well, no, it's easements out by Hannah-Nutman Park, Back 40 Restaurant, all of those places out in that area.
Gotcha. I know what you mean.
They gave them to us. We gave them to Tim to look at. There's a couple questions, so we're going to meet with those guys on Thursday afternoon, and so at the next meeting we probably can approve the easement.
I think we really need to look at the alleys, the ones that we've closed up, when we get to that point, and make sure that maybe some of them can stay that way, because I know a few, I've traveled them, I mean in the golf cart, that I don't think you want to open them up, because I think you'll get a lot of traffic through them, and maybe it might not be good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people will be cutting corners.
Making shortcuts,
Right.
might be a concern for safety.
Yep. I think so. Just
Give me one.
Macklin.
Larry Macklin's alley?
Yeah.
Runs between 5th Street and 3rd Street.
Right, and then there's
That's
some.
where Chick Ross used to live.
Just so it goes all the way to Third too, I think. Yeah.
Then there's some alleys that run north and south that I think that they go with the flow of traffic, and I think people might cut corners and just, I don't know. I'm just saying that, and I think it.
I don't think Jeremy's ready to discuss that.
No, it could be a safety factor, but I think we should really look at it.
There's some four-way stops at those alley intersections.
All right. And that is, people don't.
We have one alley to talk about, really, that's not really even on our list. Nate, you got a minute? This is what I call Grant Street Alley. Tim, I think you got some emails concerning this alley, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Question is, from what I understand, and I'll let Nate elaborate on this, but to my knowledge, the alley is a platted but undeveloped alley, and it's never been vacated.
Where does it run?
Comes between Elm Street and Grant. There's a triangular piece of property.
Elm and Grant.
Yes. So it's part of the near the trail system there, actually.
Elm and Grant.
It's right across from the Quonset hut property that the city has.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's due north of that property in Southeast Elementary School. Keekonga Street.
down by
kind of
Tyler's
out on the
house.
west. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tyler's on the corner of Stevenson and Elm.
Okay, so he's real close to this then. There's an alleyway that's right now it's being used as a private drive to a person's garage.
How convenient.
Well, to my knowledge, we don't have any storm or sanitary sewers in that alleyway. Now, we've not gone to the process of contacting any of the other utilities. It may be necessary that we keep a utility easement on that. But having talked to Jeremy, I don't believe that there's any need that we would maintain that as a platted alleyway because it's already being used as his driveway. So,
And there also an issue with a tree that was growing.
I think that was what precipitated the issue.
Right.
Well, this tree's in the alleyway. Who owns this and who's going to maintain it? And the issue is like we don't really need the alleyway. So, kind of the recommendation is that if the city would like to pursue.
So it's platted, but we've never actually put an alley in on that
Correct.
property.
Right.
What's it take to vacate it?
Well,
Tim?
basically, normally what happens is the adjoining property owners file a petition to vacate the alley, and then that comes before the council, and the council can vacate it. And when that happens, you go to the center line of the alley and one half of the property goes to this side and one half goes to this side as far as the owners.
In this case, if we were to do that, then this person's driveway would not be accessible anymore. So that's something that will have to be discussed if this property owner would be required to purchase the
whole thing.
west adjoiners, essentially purchase their rights out for that. So that's something we'll have to discuss, but before we spent time pursuing that,
And that, how long has that drive been there?
that's a very good question. It'd be pretty difficult to tell.
The argument could be made that that private owner has developed a prescriptive easement that would allow that person to continue to utilize the...
So
We could,
there's property on each side of the alley. Is there a house on each side or a driveway on each side?
here's actually the plan itself. The person with the garage here at the back, this is their only access to that garage. So the area that I've got highlighted here shows that. That's the home and this is the garage space. So they're using this driveway as their access to that rear part.
There's no other
He
access?
doesn't have other access. So if we were to split that in half, essentially it's a 10-foot platted alleyway.
Yeah, right, here's where Tyler...
Who does actually own that?
I didn't bring the property imprint on those. So,
Well, the alternative would be that the city could... The city
Trying to
could,
get my bearings.
the city could retain the ownership and basically have some kind of written agreement that permits the continued use as it exists, provided that the property owner assumes all liability
Everything here.
and maintains it.
Okay, I know where we're at here.
yeah. You wouldn't know.
So if that's going to be an issue of vacating,
Which is what he's used it as.
then maybe that's the way to deal with it.
So you're saying, yeah, if you split it in half, it would be split between all these guys too?
And
Yeah.
he would almost be harmed by it because he
Yeah.
would have to suddenly he'd have to buy that and they wouldn't be obligated to sell it.
Do you know who lives there?
I could find that out. I didn't bring the info because it was essentially just the merits on the alley.
Tyler might know.
There's two other ways that this could
Now,
be
where's Tyler
handled.
live, then you say? Here?
Right there.
Their house right there, across catty corner almost. The alley just faces right at him, actually.
Yeah, either the city could allow him to continue to use, you could enter into an agreement where we continue to own it,
Essentially an encroachment agreement.
and then just allow them to,
That
I
might be
would,
the easiest.
well, I would suggest if you're going to do that they assume responsibility for any personal liability, and they maintain at their own expense.
Yeah, so we just essentially say it's still our alley.
It's our alley, but we're going to allow you to, the other option would be, if he wants to actually put stone down or some material down and turn it over to us, then we could maintain it in the future and actually use it as an alley.
Does the alley go all the way through?
Yep.
Who owns it?
And then, yep.
But
It's
it's not...
only improved up to where his
His
driveway.
driveway. There's only stone or whatever the material is.
If
up
we
to the
could
driveway.
probably find out, if we talked to Roger's office, or if there was a permit pulled for the garage, that might date when the driveway was put in. That would probably give us our best indication how long it's been there. That might give you an indication of whether or not he's got a prescriptive easement, essentially.
The
That's kind of that's a stretch, isn't it?
Well, it is, because I'm not sure that you can get a prescriptive easement on a public way.
Yeah.
And technically, it's a public way. So,
Okay.
Well, it's so technical then.
but I think that if he's willing, and I don't know what it would take to, do we have stone alleys? Or are they all paved?
Well,
There's some stone.
Jeremy's been moving towards paving the alleyways that we have, so if we do, it's not for long, because as he improves those, we're phasing those out, because they're difficult to plow and clear.
Right.
So, and they're pushing all the stone into the street elsewhere whenever you push it with snow, so.
Tony Myers, I don't know what the Tony Myers that is. Big Tony used to wrestle for
No,
Belmont.
he doesn't live there.
There's
Yeah,
there's
this-
an alley right across from the police station that's, the guy uses it for his driveway. In fact, he has a trailer parked at the back of it. I mean, we don't use it.
Guy lives on Second. Second.
It's the other alley.
Remember I told you that the guy at the corner complained because somebody concerned on the alley, took out his bushes. So I went down and looked at it, and the guy's got a trailer right at the...
Is it the alley, you're talking about the alley that connects 3rd Street to 2nd?
Well, this alley runs east and west. So it goes from the police garage or
You're talking about the old police or new police?
or new.
He's talking about, oh,
I'm sorry, yeah, I know what you mean, Bill. Yeah. But he uses it, he parks his camper in there.
Right, right. So there's some alleys that are like that, but
Well, I think by just allowing him to use it is fine. That way, you know, I feel sorry for the guy. If we split ownership, split ownership, then
Well,
he's dead out of the water with
yeah, and
using it.
Audra Snyder is the one that actually initiated the inquiry about this, but
is she one of those houses on the other half of it?
no, she's an attorney that represents
Oh,
this owner.
okay.
And, you know, the question came up, you know, is it our alley, and do we have an obligation to maintain it? If so, there's a problem with this tree. And I think that's kind of what precipitated the
I
initial
think the owner wants to take down the tree, but legally can't because it's
in our property.
is it our
Not her
alley?
tree.
It's a platted alley, but it's undeveloped. Other than,
Then we should keep it.
well, that's, the issue is, do we need it? And if we don't need it, then who's going to maintain it if we keep it? What I'm suggesting is that we enter into an agreement with this individual that he would have the continued right to use that to access his garage, provided he assumes liability for any injury that occurs on our property and that he maintains it. So if he's using it for a stone alley,
the
then,
easiest way.
and then that way,
Vacate it, then he's losing half.
he's
of
going
it.
to lose half of it.
So you can get half his car then.
Yeah,
Right.
so that may be the simplest way to
I
do
would
it.
make a motion to have Tim do the paperwork which allows him to use the alley, but it's still in the city. And he takes all responsibility for liability.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Yeah, aye.
You all that, fellas? Thank you, Nate. While you're here, you might...
You want the...
Anything else that we do with it? There's going to be surveys and all
Oh, okay.
expenses too, right?
Yeah,
So, I mean,
that's-
this is definitely
this is
that's even the easiest way.
what this does is simply maintains the status quo, but, you know, if he wants to take out the tree, he can take out the tree then. You know, we're not
And
going
we don't have
to,
to pay for that.
right.
Tony Myers, that is?
I don't either.
Okay. Nate, working with Christie Sturts for some annexation properties. Nate, which areas are you talking about?
This is actually two areas. This would be Northwest Winchester Road and the county jail site. County is looking to bring their judicial center into the city limits. Right now it's being developed outside city limits, but prior to opening, they would like to have that brought into the city. So they would
Where was
have
the
to
first place you mentioned?
What's that?
What was the first?
Northwest Winchester Road. I was going to get back to that one. That one's a little more complicated. We've had John and Linda Leach in asking to be annexed. We've got a number of properties on Winchester Road that we've connected sewer to.
I think there's three. The three I'm talking about are right across from Charlie Broon and
Yep.
Wayne Porter. They're right across the street.
And there's a couple properties there southwest of there, so
Wayne and Charlie.
now that area is still undefined.
Yes.
But working with Christie, I'd like to try to refine that area and then develop a financial
Nate, there's
impact.
one. Do you know where Charlie Broon lives? You know where Charlie's house is?
Yep.
Right in front of Charlie's house is, what's his name? He still lives there. Floyd Reed. Remember Floyd is? That is in the county, so we might as well
And
try to
there's some
clean that one
properties
up.
to the west of that as well.
Right.
There's a handful of properties there that we're
I'd like
looking at to
clean
get the
them.
contiguity
Get them all
we
in.
need.
Yeah.
So there is,
On the one there in front of Charlie Broon's, that is Les Markle's daughter.
Yes,
So-
it is.
And I asked Les about it. Les asked her. She really doesn't have a problem. I didn't annex, so.
for the most part, the goal for both of these two annexation areas is to have them as super voluntary. And I talked to, there's two property owners, there's two residences next to the jail site that we would like to bring in with that. I've had initial conversations with them saying that we're looking at doing a study on this, and both of them have been lukewarm, obviously. It's like, well, what's it going to cost? I said, well, I can't tell you that because I honestly don't know yet, but if this was something that was going to go forward, would you be opposed to this, or is it something you'd be
One of these is
welcoming?
Cecil Cruz,
Yeah.
so he'll be he'll be against it. You know, and I like Cecil, but he's always against everything.
How about Eddie Gage?
He would not be part of this annexation because we're looking for super voluntary, and we wouldn't need to go for that section. Now, part of this is I'm relying on Christie for a number of the annexation law changes, because since we've done the hospital annexation,
It's changed.
the rules have changed.
Big time.
So, and that's reflected in her fee for this, because the annexation for these two properties, though I've itemized quite a bit of work that I'm doing in this annexation versus what we did in the first, probably about 3 times as much work we've taken on now. All the questionnaires, all the map development, and a lot of financial work I'm putting together for her. Her fee's still gone up because of the rules. So, try as I might, I'm not really saving much on
So
it.
compensation for Christie up to $12,500
Yes.
is what Nate's saying, but he's going to do as much work as possible
Yeah, and
to
so
cut
we're
down
gonna
on what
continue to
Christie's
do this.
involvement is.
And hopefully, once we've been through this with the new rules, I can take more on as far as the annexation, but unfortunately, even in discussion with her early on, she's not getting good answers from the state as far as what we have to submit. So part of this is going to be new. It's new for everybody because of essentially the field's changed.
Well, how would this work, Nate? You're saying that the east side of Winchester Road would be in the city, but the west side would not?
We would actually be trying to take John and Linda Leach's property there, just north of Cross
That's Sullivan's old
the
property.
Sullivan property. Trying to bring that in. There's a piece of property that's part of the golf course that's just a little wedge that they didn't bring in. And we'd also be trying to bring in part of the open field that's east of Winchester Road, south of Phyllis Hebels. I think it's John and Phyllis.
What about the other ones?
Yeah,
From
that-
where you turn into the meadows,
Yep.
From where you
All
turn
those
in-
properties along Winchester Road.
coming back
that
toward town.
Yep. All those would be brought in.
Okay.
So I think it's a Mrs. Pettibone lives in
Yeah,
there.
Mabel
and then
lives out
there's,
there.
I don't know, at one time Mike Mahan, daughter lived in there, I thought maybe.
I think we end up bringing about 6 or 7 properties in, but that's still a schematic. It's essentially a sketch at this point. I did the analysis based on contiguity, so I knew we had the city limits adjacent enough to make those viable properties. The next step essentially is, once we've got Christie Sturts engaged in the contract, then I can start doing some questionnaires to our department heads, see what our obligation for infrastructure is to make sure what the cost would be for us, and then we'll come back and discuss and see if it's something that we're interested in pursuing, and then maybe we need to modify those limits. So, and then we can start the process of contacting the homeowners. But once we start contacting, they start filling out petitions to be annexed, then our timeline starts to move, and that's why we need to be cautious about doing more than what I did on the judicial center annexation, is essentially asking, are you up or down on this? What are your feelings? Because if they start signing petitions, then we need to be pretty aggressive about...
What we're talking about is annexation of like Winchester Road area, across this road from like Charlie Broom's, Wayne Porter's. There's 3 or 4 houses over there. There's one right in front of Charlie Broom's that's on Winchester Road that's not in. That's Markle's daughter happens to live there. And then you go on past the bridge, and I think there's 2 or 3 houses.
2 properties there to the
Properties on the
southwest.
left-hand side after you cross the bridge.
Sullivan? I call
Sullivan
Sullivan.
also
Other side, yeah.
That's all
His daughter
included in this.
was all over me once about that.
Oh,
I think they got some money, the Sullivan family has some money in escrow.
Right.
Until this is all done, so this will clean that up, release the escrow money, so,
So it's helping them out.
right, it'll
That's-
free their
This
escrow.
would not be any issue for the Sullivan family and their trust, so...
They want to close out that estate.
Yes,
Is-
and this will
and
open
that's-
them up. So we need to move on. What, Nate, and then the other area is out where the new jail's going, and 2 properties
Yep.
that are there. One is Cecil Cruz, and the other one, I believe, is on Jim Wilder, I
Jim
believe.
Wilder, yep.
Well, see, that's where,
Are they receptive to annexation?
They were obviously cautiously positive about it.
That's
They
like the
were-
houses across from the garage there, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
yeah, but then the
He's
houses
got a
on,
big farmhouse,
the houses,
couple buildings.
from where Lutz's Flowers used to be, south, will stay in the county then, huh?
Yeah,
Why?
we're not in.
Well, that's,
That's just another project down
It's
there.
just, it's essentially a second part at this point, so.
Nate, so
You don't want to
you're
tackle
saying,
that group of homes from
boy, I would.
I'll do what you want, I guess, but that wasn't what we had presented
All the
to
way
Christie
out
for this.
to
But it's, part of it,
Rose Green
well,
Drive,
let's-
Hubbard's.
let me,
Because I got one home there, I just love.
Again, we had a little island.
That house was
yeah,
terrible.
there is a business person.
I was gonna say.
Brody alone.
Throw it out there.
Yeah, there's.
Oh, I forgot, your
His business is out there.
Crone, who lives in that house with all the garbage?
Yeah, that's, I don't know his real name, but I think maybe Rob.
Looks terrible.
Rodabush.
Okay, so
I can't remember which Rodabush he is.
Bush.
the little bald-headed guy, right?
He's a
Well,
collector.
Collector, he's a hoarder.
No, we call him Raccoon Guy. You know where he gets all that stuff from? It's just out of my trailer. He comes over at night and he'll grab the metal out and drag it back to his house.
Oh, my God.
Sometimes you'll see him before you come out of the building.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the issues with doing too much is the timeline. If it's not a super voluntary annexation, it's very difficult to have the annexation done prior to the jail opening. So that's, I mean, that's obviously
Well, what's
that's
the
an
worst
arm
thing that can
stretch.
happen if it's not done before the jail opens?
It
They pay out
varies
city
in-
rates until it's done, so.
So that's
Might be
certainly up to, that's at your discretion, obviously, but I think the goal was to try to have the annexation done prior to them opening the jail. But that's not a make or break issue for the city. I mean, it's your decision as far as who you want to bring in. I think both areas, I mean, if the overall area or the small area, I think you'll probably have some dispute with one of the property owners you've already named. But for the most part, I think I got one person outside the city that swears up and down that he is, because the city limit sign's on the other side of his property corner, so. So
Okay,
many of them
so-
don't identify as being city residents.
Heading out of Winchester Street toward the jail,
Mm-hmm.
you pass Ed Gage's shop.
Lutz's Flowers.
That's not
I'm
it.
talking about on the left-hand
That's
side.
not it.
I'm saying, that'll still remain rural until you get all the way out to those houses just before the jail site.
Correct.
And we
They
would,
are currently
The
in the
old,
county.
in the county, we would annex
We're
those
gonna
couple
annex
houses
them.
and the jail.
And then also Ed's Farm would not be in. So he's going to be a little island not in.
Right.
then there's a couple.
Which I'm sure
homes
he'll
on
be
the
happy
west
with
side.
that, however,
I don't know. I don't mind talking to Ed, say, hey, how do you feel about this? You know?
he hasn't called you,
Uh-uh.
he has me.
He's against annexation?
Well, he hasn't so much talked about the annexation, he's more concerned about the jail's antenna.
He went
In
to
the fly
jail to
zone.
buy all his
Well,
property.
right,
That's
exactly.
Fly
county.
zone.
Cash in.
They've checked out all the legalities on that, and
Yeah, he's saying something about the drones are illegal.
No, he's
He's not a dummy.
no, he's not. He does a lot of reading.
since we know that the jail wants to be annexed, we've known since it started, have any of our people, or are there any of our people involved in that street to make sure our...
I think Nate's worked with him, haven't you?
We had the coordination meeting, and then Jeremy, myself, and
The
the
street
water
that
department,
takes you
sewer
into the
department
jail?
reviewed the plan.
Coming off
as far as
Winchester.
that.
Yeah,
I
right there
just
at
think,
that
since
curve.
we know it, that we should keep an eye on it at least.
Yeah,
And-
right, exactly.
Bill and Tyler, I don't know if you guys, and I know you guys have known, but I contacted all three commissioners and asked them their opinion. So it's just a pipe dream. I also sent an aerial view showing it, with the street that would go into the jail, just a pipe dream of extending that all the way over to High Street. South of Homestead, it would come up just about in front of the KFC. And they all liked the idea.
Okay, Nate, tell him why that's not feasible.
Well, can't be done, yes. There might be some issues as far as floodplain in those areas. It might be costly, but, I mean, it could be done. That was an early discussion that we've had with them, and they're willing to, the county is at least giving some verbal discussion as far as granting additional easements to the city or granting additional right-of-way prior to them selling off any of the additional Miller Farm, I guess, what we'd be talking about, what they purchased.
What can be done? The issue is the floodplain.
It becomes a floodplain.
So if you put a road in
It'd be
there,
offsetting- It's just offsetting properties.
yeah,
So it'd have to be
if it
some
had to
sort
be
of
done,
joint
then you,
project, but it could
if
be.
you're putting dirt into the floodplain, you have to take
You're gonna have
a
to
lot of
offset
dirt
that.
out somewhere else.
Yep. So,
you
it's
know,
just, it
just-
comes
that's
down
just the way
to
it
the
works.
logistics of doing that, and, I mean, it's just any other facet or problem that you might have, so, but it could be done, it's just kind of how to
Well, I
approach the
think
problem.
you're never gonna know that till you have it engineered, and I
You really have
think
to
that's
do some
really out of your
research.
scope of duty, Nate, to...
Yeah, I mean, we're in the county, it's not city.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it
but
just
we're
comes down
requesting the
to,
street, so it's
Well,
ours. I don't know.
Good luck getting them to pay for it.
there's
The other option to that idea, really, it's a good idea, because now you have to drive up Winchester Street all the way to Grant,
Yeah.
to really get over.
Yeah, there's
on
no-
a-
there's
around
no
the-
way to
direct way.
Go around
There's
through
no direct way.
Homestead, is maybe to extend Bowman Street over to Winchester, and then also Bowman Street from where, like, the entrance into Homestead, or where Pete Brown lives, take that straight through, because I think there's some area there that you could,
correct.
Well, that's a good point, I never thought about that, where Pete lives, if that went straight
it
through.
went straight through to the hospital, basically, is where it
Currently,
comes.
we actually have a half right-of-way for Bowman, it's just, again, it's an unimproved roadway.
Undeveloped.
See, I think that's
But it's too narrow right now to really
the idea,
develop.
was getting access to the hospital,
Yeah, from the
and
south.
for the hospital, access west.
Right now, I think when the hospital has to go south, or somebody going to the hospital from the south, they just go in County Road 100 and come in High Street to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
They don't mess around with
Mhm.
Winchester Street
Right.
and Grant Street and all of that. So,
Okay.
what do we want Nate to do? Do we want to include that area on the right side of the road as you're heading out on Winchester Street for us old people where Luke's Flowers used to be? Where Tyler's business is located, those houses, and I think it goes all the way
You're only on record tire with.
from Crick Street all the way to Village Green Drive.
Whether it's this time,
It's basically the only railroad bed.
Now,
whether it's this annexation or a further one, I think it absolutely should be looked at for,
But do we want to jeopardize one project trying to add to that
Well,
project?
it depends on
Take
timeline
a separate
issue.
spike.
The problem is, if it's not super voluntary, it's a long drawn-out process under the changes under the law. I
Lots
mean,
of
you're
notices,
you're
We should rush
looking
through all the super
probably a
voluntary.
year and a half to 2 years.
really.
So we
Yeah, I
got
think-
two people,
it adds over almost more than 9 months to the
Yeah.
I think if
project.
we can do the super
The
voluntaries.
super
that out of the
voluntary
way.
is
Keep that on the plate though for
Yeah,
next.
super voluntary is
Yeah.
significantly longer than
Oh,
what
yeah.
we had. Her timeline,
I
the
think that's
timeline
good.
that's proposed in the
Tyler can go
contract.
down the street and get everybody to agree, and then bring that
We're
back
looking
to
at it
super voluntary.
That's right.
You're still looking at trying to finish this up in April of 2017 as a super voluntary.
Yeah, April of 2017.
So you're paying out-of-state
So,
rates,
it's not,
or out-of-city rates, I should say.
Yeah.
Really, it's gonna save you money.
It's-
I did the calculations for some other
They
properties.
they intentionally tried to make annexation very, very difficult. And it's really designed to prevent
Property tax increase
property
will
owners
go up,
from
of
being
course.
forced
But then
to,
the money you save
into
on
a city.
trash,
So-
water, sewer, you don't pay trash?
and a lot of the municipalities complain
But there's
that
when
what
they go
you're
through
doing is
annexation,
you're going to
there's a
stymie
cost analysis and
economic
benefit
development.
that you go through, so they'll figure that out.
Boy, yeah,
They'll let you know that.
that's what it Yeah,
Now,
Senator
I'm
Long.
really hearing everybody that we should get the annexation of the jail and those two properties near the jail first, get that done, put this on the radar for definite near future annexation.
okay. Well,
The other ones on Winchester Road, I'd get everything from, well, those three what we
this
hooked up.
essentially encloses an area. If you'd like what I've got a graphic established, at least draft, I can send that all to you.
But to do this, we need to hire Christie
We
first
still
to
need to hire
help
Christie to help put this
with
together.
it. And we're looking at $12,500,
Hey, we're
not to
along
exceed.
that road.
Along Winchester Road?
Right, is any of our utilities along there?
There is a gap in our water main along there. We do have sanitary sewer out there now.
Okay, because that one house you're talking about, the first one on the other side of the ditch, on the left-hand side, up on the
Mhm.
hill.
Yep.
A couple of years ago, that lady trenched something all the way to
Oh,
the
she
front.
did, she hooked up to our sewer.
Oh, okay.
No permission, no nothing, she just had the guy do it, and
Is that Pettibone?
we never, yeah, but still, we
She didn't
just
seem
asked
good.
permission.
No, she didn't see it at
You
all.
good?
Bill.
So,
So anyhow,
to do that though, obviously we
okay,
need
so
to
we
enter
need
an
to,
agreement.
but by approving this contract, does that go to council, Tim? Since it's
Board of Works
expenditure?
should, Board of Works should approve it, and council should approve the expenditure.
Okay, so,
I'm in favor of doing it, I think I'd like to get those things cleaned up.
A second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, it's carried. So Nate will have to bring this up at the city council meeting.
Okay. We can identify the fund that should come from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tyler, while you were back there in the back, we talked about an alley down by your house. You know Tony Myers, that lives across. Nate, where's your map?
Right here.
Could I have that, please? I just want to show Tyler, it's right close to his house. Anyhow, there's an alley that's platted there, we've never done anything, somebody put some stone in it, and it looks like a driveway. Show him where that alley is.
This is that circle alleyway here. I suppose you live there, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Oh, yeah, I know Mr. Myers.
that's a platted alleyway or just a discussion as far as...
What Tony Myers is that?
I don't know what Tony Myers that is.
I don't know. Not even Tony Myers, you know.
It's not the football coach at West
The other
Bungay.
day, it's Tony Myers on there. I'm like, I never knew your name was Tony Myers.
No.
Okay, so anyhow, we approved, basically, we're gonna continue owning it, and we're gonna allow him to use it, because we don't maintain it, we don't do anything.
Yeah, he uses it like a driveway.
That's a driveway, right. So if we cut him off, he's not gonna have it access,
Too.
yeah. So, just so you know, in case somebody asks you. Okay. Roger's not here. Ann, you got a fence issue or a fence question?
Yeah, it fell down.
Yeah.
The water,
Flood.
the water
I have,
pushed it down.
this is one copy, I guess, it's pretty simple if you want to just pass it around. I got 3 quotes. The fence, the amount that we're going to replace is 705 feet, 6-foot fence with the gate operator and control. And the quotes is Arrow Fence with $17,800, they're underneath that. RNC was $16,396, and Believe was
That was
$14,008.
gonna be my guess, it'd be the cheapest,
Yeah,
Where are they out of?
Fort Wayne.
Fort Wayne.
Yeah, they've done a lot of fencing in the
Yeah.
parks more than any place, but yeah. Yeah. So where is this fence located in? Is it on Long
It's the front-
Road?
It's 625 feet is the east side, towards the east,
Flippers Road.
yeah, on Monmouth, and then 80 feet to the north. It's a little L. That's what it's gonna be.
East.
Is
So,
it,
Well,
does it replace the fence on the
on
other end?
Monmouth Road.
Yeah, all of
Monmouth.
it, on both sides of the gate?
Yes, we're doing 275 feet that on the opposite part of the drive,
Okay.
just so it...
So the whole frontage will be new, yeah.
So your gated will be your driveway, where you want
Yeah,
to put the
yeah.
gate?
And it'll have, you say, a remote opening?
Operator.
Do we get any insurance money for damage?
What, was it damaged during the flood?
Oh, it's
Yeah,
not
it
down.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flattened.
I don't think you did. Yeah, I went through fellas and then...
So right now, there's nothing
Insurance wouldn't...
kind of
wouldn't-
making a barrier there, okay. Well, and then what the,
Yeah, Dan,
purchasing,
Dan's a very...
what the purchasing ordinance says, so we got 3 quotes, needs Board of Works approval.
I'm good with it, we got the money?
We don't have much choice, really, I don't think.
Mm.
I mean, while we're doing it, we update it, we're gonna put some, electric openers, it sounds like, or
No, we've never.
remote openers, I should say.
Now, just you'll know which city employee was in, based on a code or something.
Well, yeah, you can program them that way, I believe. We've never had one, so I'm sure.
It'll probably stay open during the day, and then
During the day,
you'll
yeah.
shut it at
We
night.
have weekends.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I think Jeremy has something similar to that, the opener anyhow, down on Elm Street.
Okay.
Question?
You have copies? Yeah, I gave some to Dan too.
Don't be so shy, guys.
What do you want, motion to approve it? Motion to approve to replace the fence. Bill?
With cleave, right?
With glebe.
Glebe.
Yeah, please. I've seen their signs on fence all over Portland.
They did a lot out of Hanover Park. I remember Frank Wellman was alive at that time, and he was on the park board, and he was out there all the time, making sure that it was 3 feet deep or 4 foot, whatever the requirement was, and he'd make them redo it when they get so mad at him. But Frank was good at it, yeah. So anyhow, motion, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion's carried. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Kenny did, and then Bill.
How much was their quote?
14,000.
14 even?
No, 806, I think.
Okay. I thought I had 8 something, but, okay.
And it looks like another $450 for the raising gate. That right, or are you looking at that 400?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's added in that?
That's included in the 14,800?
We talked to him after we got the quote, we asked him about raising the motor part of the operator because of the flooding out there. They can a few feet, but not, you know.
Yeah, up to the top or anything, yeah. Makes sense. Well, I have a couple other things. Well, I guess we can do this. At the last meeting, I didn't keep very good notes. We talked about animal control, and I think we said Roger and Greg's here, but we're going to check into it. Our code now takes care of dogs. It doesn't really take care of any other animals. I guess, do we want to?
Other than fowl, I think it's
Fowl, yeah. So it takes care of chickens.
Can't have chickens.
Can't have chickens, pigeons.
Geese or turkeys.
And pigeons. 'Cause one time we had an issue with pigeons.
What really wants the chickens?
Well, across the street from me and 3
right
houses
behind your
south.
house is the county.
I told her, I said, there's an ordinance against it.
Across the street from me and 3 houses
I had a
south.
guy concerned though if we are going to annex him. He lives like across from the Grey
We're
Goose.
talking about the rabbit.
Because he's thinking of putting up a little barn, like a little mini barn, and how soon are we going to annex that area? You know, was his question.
Well,
Is there any grandfathering?
No.
Got home from work one night and there were 2 turkeys walking around out there in the sidewalk in the yard. And the guy's out there in his bib overalls on. I mean, he was a real country bumpkin. And so I got out and walked down there. I said, what's going on here? He says, well, that's Thanksgiving and that's Christmas.
I got rid of those, didn't I, buddy?
I told Bill, and the turkeys became Labor Day, I think.
I think I scared him.
Yeah. That house is sitting empty, foreclosed now.
I know Tyler ran into someone that was asking about cats, how we regulate cats. So I did check with the animal control officer, Chad Sprunger, and he says, yeah, I'll put a trap out, trap them, and then I'll let them go. I said, well, why would you do that? That doesn't accomplish anything. So, well, all it is a neighbor feud, So I'll trap them and take them over to the lady that owns the cats, and the whole thing just starts all over again. So.
And then you have the carrier pigeons.
Carrier pigeons. We ran into that issue one time.
Down on 5th Street.
There's nothing in our ordinance on that.
Lamont, I believe is the guy's name. 5th and maybe St. Mary's right
Fifth
there.
and
Mivers,
Mivers.
yeah.
And they're not, there's nothing in our ordinance that would prevent them, and unless they become a nuisance. And,
Well, who determines if it's a nuisance?
well, I'd say if they the neighbors.
It could potentially be a help.
What happens is this
Right.
lady has some cat, or she lives next door to a lady that has cats. So if the lady that has the cats lets them out, they come over and they dump them into the neighbor's yard. The neighbor, am I saying it right?
On her flowers.
Okay,
Yeah.
on her flowers. So she wants them cats taken care of. Well, we don't have anything that says we can do that. So, do we change our ordinance? I guess that's the question.
I'd say
We have
no.
something for cats, we don't
Tim,
have
this is
anything
what you
for
went to law
dogs.
school for.
Yeah. Well, did you ever heard the expression herding cats? You know, it's hard to catch them. And,
Well, the Chinese restaurant does all the time.
That's not unique about a cat.
there's something about cats that I think if you look at other municipalities, I don't think anybody tries to control them.
Cats, because
Right. They're considered primarily a household pet. And so
you know, you can't call your cat stuff. I don't know what to do. It's something called, they're just kind of,
they don't train like a dog trains.
right.
So I think what I would suggest if you're seriously looking at the possibility of trying to do something, I'd take a look at some other ordinances first to see what other communities.
don't need a law for
Other communities?
Yeah, I don't, or we can contact American Publishing and see if they've got any samples that we could look at.
All those codes are on. If you go into American Legion, look at every community.
Every community. I would bet you that you're not gonna find many that control cats.
I would think, now that'd be sad, that'd be hard.
Good? Is it hard?
And
There's a lot
I'm
of
not,
cats around.
Oh,
not-
yeah, that'd be, just be difficult.
you know, I'm not making light of the complaint that you got, Tyler, because up at our lake cottage, we have 3 neighbors who probably between them have about 10 cats.
Well, I don't understand, if you're responsible to keep your dog on a leash, what's the difference with a cat? If it's your cat and you own it, it really shouldn't be on that person's property. If they're gonna take ownership of the cat, then that cat should be their responsibility, just like a dog. I mean, what makes that cat special to come on your property is, I don't understand. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I'm not a cat fan.
Well, I'm,
Well, not
trust me,
either.
I'm not either.
But you gotta put your dog on a leash when you take it outside. Why, what makes a cat?
I think the primary reason, the difference is that a dog, you know, certain dogs will become aggressive, where cats typically will flee before they fight. And I think that's the difference.
All right. I'll tell you what, I'll check with some other cities, I'll go online and check with American Legal, and find something that somebody else uses, I'll bring it back to you at the next meeting.
So that way, then we should trap it, going around and around. Like, why don't we trap it, and we can take it away? Well, it's not the cat's fault.
So she wants us to trap the lady, neighbor?
It's the owner's fault, not the owner's fault.
Okay, I'll check that, and I'll bring it back to the
Life's
to the
way
next
too
meeting.
short to worry about.
These are, the bad part is, these are important issues to some people.
Sure.
You know, this is the worst thing in the world, you know, and
But this
well,
cat,
that's just not that big.
but I still argue about that Fort Wayne over the cat.
I know there's something, there's a distinction drawn between cats and
Because
dogs.
of the feline issue.
Yeah.
And it is, it's just like,
The
cats can roam, you can't pass an ordinance against a cat roaming.
The problem is, if you put if you have an ordinance that puts a leash on a cat, you're gonna have people coming out of the woodwork, just like when John mentioned putting diapers on the horses.
You're gonna have it. I only have 59 days.
Tell your neighbor to get a slingshot.
There are people that don't like them, there are people that love them. If you do that, you might satisfy this group, and you're gonna have a whole nother one that steps up.
I gave them the ordinance that we're not
Say
on
you trap a cat on his property, and
Yeah.
and they got rid of them. I mean, I didn't need to.
You got
pursue
more
it.
for board
But I
work?
don't,
Yeah, I got 2 things.
I don't know.
You got something else?
It's, if it's a neighbor's cat,
I want to tell you
it's
another side
a-
correctly.
Probably have an issue. If it's a
How soon is it across from where you had 10 cats?
Okay.
Like where Al Martin and all those houses.
No, it's probably a couple of years away.
This guy's got a chicken coop, and he's looking to put up a little mini barn.
It's probably gonna be,
Yeah, if they've got,
Adams County.
you know, if they've got tags or something like that, cars, or,
When's that gonna
I
be?
wouldn't
And they've been
advise
talking about
somebody
it
to get
forever.
rid of them. You know,
But we don't
if
care
it's
right now.
clearly
We're talking.
a stray or a
He lives
wildcat.
in your church, Gower, Aaron Gower.
Yeah, what about, oh, he lives out there, yeah.
He lives out in that stretch. He's got a chicken
Well,
coop.
I'll tell you
He
one
wants
thing,
to
when
know,
we-
can he put up a
when we
little
start
barn?
annexing some
Well,
of
he
these
annexed it. You
properties,
gotta get rid of it.
it's gonna be interesting as far as our ordinances, because some of these properties are totally against our ordinance, are doing things that, you know,
Yeah, I agree.
and that's gonna be interesting as we, because there's junk cars, there's things out there
Yeah, I
that,
think the first area is gonna be West Monroe Street. That's the first targeted area, according to what Nate was telling me. Well, let's see how it goes. But that's probably what's gonna happen. That, to me, it's a couple of years away at the earliest.
well, the only thing you can do,
So at that time, we'd say you gotta get rid of your chicken coop.
well, when they become a city, yeah, you just show them the ordinance, and they're not allowed to have a chicken coop.
Well, the problem with that, though, Bill, is if people believe that they're going to have to significantly change the use of their property, then they're not going to voluntarily ask to be annexed, in which case now you're talking about either an involuntary annexation or a voluntary instead of super voluntary. And that's going to add that's going to add cost and probably another year.
But isn't it, if the
to the
majority of the
process.
neighbors still want it, it's majority rules?
No, it's, the way it's set up now,
100%.
you have to, no, it's super voluntary, it's 100%. If it's voluntary, it's gotta be 75% or something like that.
Or,
Or there's a couple of different ways, but even then, the way they changed the law, it takes nearly, I think it's over 2 years before you can get a property.
because all the notices and hearings you
Yeah.
have to have now.
There's so many steps that you now have to go through that you never had to.
State legislation, that's who changed it all.
So, and if it's involuntary, meaning if you're pursuing this when you have less than a certain percentage, then it's even longer and you have to go through the court.
So we'll get all the easier ones first, and then the next phase, and then...
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that you can keep them super voluntary, you want to.
Dan here has a couple items. One is annually we write off bad debts that are 5 years old or more, and it's the annual time to do that. What's those add up to, Dan?
This is just calendar year 2009.
Nine.
People that did not pay in '09.
$21,000 in water, sewer.
And we'll pass this list around, and
Yeah.
you'll know some of these names,
Get
I'm
some
sure.
names, but some of them are bankruptcies. There's nothing you can do. Let me
Did
ask
we-
you this.
They can't get water in their name.
I have a whole other issue with the water, and I think I talked to Tim about this.
Right. In
I
the
got
name.
stuck in
I
Wilshire,
understand how they- I
or
understand
the
how
water
they-
bill is never
but they
paid
can't
to turn
use
the
their
water
charge.
back on. They charged me
Huh?
$2,100
They can't use
to
their
turn the water
No, if you
on
catch them with their charge.
from the previous 5 owners that never paid the bill.
Oh,
They
my.
sent them a late fee every
You know, mine
month,
is-
and then when you
What's
got
that?
to go turn that water
Mine is
on,
coming. They could always
I had
come
to
in.
pay it to get it on.
Because you bought the property?
I want
I
Dan,
bought the
I want you to
property.
tell Dan this one, just a minute. We're not quite ready for that, but, yeah, so we're gonna pass this around, and then we'll vote on it here later. This is 2009.
This is before I even
What
started.
was 2008? Do you remember, just off the top of your head, was it $20,000 last?
What's that?
Last year when we did for 2008, we did,
It was right around the same.
Same.
Yeah. But since then, we've hired a really good collection firm that's helped us out. These numbers will go down, but it's going to be...
the other thing that Dan's done is we've also now take credit cards. So our credit card company's getting stepped up. But it has helped. It really
One thing
does.
I wanted to ask, and I just want an opinion from everybody.
Well, I want Tyler to tell you real quick what happened to him in Wilshire.
I bought a property in Wilshire 2 years ago. They used car price for it, fixed it up. When I went in to turn on the water, they say you owe us $2,100 to turn the water on. They back charged me from the last guy that paid. The water had never been turned on to this property for 4 or 5 years, but they had a minimum sewage fee of $38, and they charged me that money to turn the water on, otherwise they weren't turning it on.
Was there a lien on the property for that?
No lien, I had title work done, no lien, nothing. It's just, I walked in and she point blank said, if you want water, you're gonna have to pay that bill to turn that back on, or we're not turning it back on. I didn't know how legal it was.
Right.
I kind of talked to Terry about it, but I don't know, but I'm at the point where I got this house ready to go, I bit the bullet and paid it, but how...
That happens in other communities.
And I've called many
works.
communities.
It worked.
You paid, didn't you?
I had to pay it. I don't know if I could have went and fought it, but by the time
You're ready.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that that's enforceable, but by the time you contest it,
Probably would have been able to
Because there's,
negotiate it down.
you know, you
You would
can
think.
lien properties for sewer and stormwater.
right, not for water.
But one of the biggest issue we have is rentals. It's not ownership of houses, it's rentals. And if you want to lien a rental property, once they're 60 days late, you have 20 days to notify the owner with a letter that they're late. At any given time, we have 100 people 60 days late. That's when they get a green taxi, and we're putting those out 100 a month. So for us to continually lien all these properties that someone's going to pay the next week, I mean, it would be, we'd need another full-time person doing it 8 hours a day. So,
Writing off 20 grand, easier.
right, and like I said, here I can show you right now, and this isn't 1 year's term, but inactive accounts for Belmont State right now, that are, the people have left the house, they haven't paid their bill, there is $22,000.
And that's over a period of how long, Dan?
Well,
Over the last 4
5
years,
because
4 years.
the rest will be written off. So in the last 5 years, inactive accounts at Belmont State, $22,000. One other, Gary Myers Rentals, $9,500. And like I said, the girls were talking to one of the landlords in town, I'm not going to mention a name, but she said something like, hey, this house, every time they leave, they don't pay the bill, blah, blah, blah. He said, his exact words were, not my concern. So, I mean, this is
But it's his house.
of the
It's his
landlord.
house, but he said, not my word.
I mean, the alternative is that you don't allow the tenant to put the bill in the tenant's name. You
That's what
require it to be put
that's what
through
Dan's
the
bringing up.
the
And
owner.
that's why I've started calling some cities and seeing, and there are some that do that. I brought this Senate bill for you to read, Tim, to see what you can get out of it.
Okay.
Most of that's about liens and everything, so I don't know, I'd like to find out if it's possible or legal to require that the houses stay in landlords' names. There's gonna be a few that are upset, I mean, 'cause
Gary
that's
Myers
gonna
was
work
up.
for them.
Last time you brought this
Belmont
up.
State would definitely be, because although every one of those would remain in their name.
Right.
That one I have in Wilshire because of what happened to me before. I don't let the tenant pay the bill.
Right.
Because they leave the water on, even if they quit paying, they leave it on because they know they're gonna pay it. So that bill comes to me every month.
And we have a few renters or landlords in town that do that. They keep it in their name, and it's so much easier. Candy Fleming, for example, out there is a great landlord.
That's not a house.
She sticks on it right now, all the time, with that.
So you're talking about houses and apartments
Yeah,
both, right?
just rental, yeah, anything that's a rental.
Any rental.
And the problem with like 17th Street, there's one shut off to 6 apartments. So we can't shut it off. You can go in and pull the meter, well, one of two things happens. They go buy a plastic piece that they throw it in there. Or two, you know, you're pulling out a meter, it leaks, the valve leaks, now you're making a mess on their floor, the valve broke, now you're responsible to fix that. It's just a nightmare for guys to go pull meters out.
But if you were to turn it off, well, fix unit, that we get the landlord to it.
But you can't.
Well, you can't because you're denying a service that people are paying
Apartment
for.
1 isn't paying, I can't shut off all 6 apartments.
Right.
Now, if it's in the landlord's name, we can. And I believe the state law is, we provide a service to an address, to a real property, not to whoever lives there. So I think we could do it.
That's what they claimed in Wilshire. They're not doing it to the person to the address, which I thought they would have to put a lien on, but.
I mean, the Senate bill says in there that it says real property all the time, it talks about the owner. So, I mean, that's, to
I think
me,
Dan brought this up to me, and I go, yeah, I understand that we're getting shorted by these landlords, but...
I mean, 20,000...
How do you guys are going, the council's the one that's
Okay,
not...
Dan, are you gonna notify, you know, say I'm renting a place. They're gonna get the bill, right?
The rent.
You're renting a place out or you're renting a place?
I'm renting the place out. The bill will go to them, but I'm responsible if they don't pay, or do I get the bill?
Well, no, we can send it to the landlord's house. We
Okay,
can send
because
it-
that other one, you know, they could be 6 weeks or 6 months in arrears before I ever even knew.
No, we would send it to the owner's house.
Okay.
Bill goes to the owner of the property,
Good, I
not the
like
renter.
Would it help to have, when I moved to California, it cost me like $600 to get electric, water, and whatever. You had to pay up front, and then you get your money back when you move.
Right. Well, okay, I mean,
Put up
we can take
$100
what
in your
deposit
account
would be.
before we even
Because
get
with
you.
the utility bill now, with an average, you know, an average bill is about $80. You know, 100 is going to barely cover 1 month. We let them go 2 months till there's a green tag, and then that's when they would, you know, so it's going to be 2 months late before you're going to get to that point. Angola, they do take a deposit, $70. And she said they always put that towards water only because it's not lienable. So what they do is they take a deposit, they have an account separate for deposits. $70 goes to that. Anything after that, $40 or more, they send to collections. If they don't get that, then they write it off. Then they lien the stormwater and the sewer. And she said since in the last few months they've done 35 of them. And so they're doing them every day, continually doing them.
Like, on here you have a couple businesses, why does the water stay on, like in the travel plaza, for instance?
Bankruptcy. They change hands.
Change hands.
I mean, that's what you're going to see. All the businesses where
Right,
people
for
file
purchase,
bankruptcy,
But if you tie it to the building, then
it's tied to the owner.
So you included
I
all
know, I've
that.
had this argument, it made me mad one time, but I don't know. I don't know why you can't.
20,000 because
See, I got a stack of bankruptcy papers
Yeah.
about this high.
If we get noticed up of a filing of bankruptcy, there's an automatic stay provision or the bankruptcy code. If we try to pursue collection of that, they can turn around and sue us, recover attorney fees and damages.
And I've had people threaten.
So you don't do it. If you get notice that they've gone into bankruptcy, you stop everything right there.
Administratively, if, say everybody from next year on got to put up $100 to get turned on, does that make a lot more paperwork for, like Angola's doing it, basically? He said theirs is 70.
I would say we move in and out 30 to 40 people a month. So that's how many times you write checks for those. You know, if I have to set up another account, it has to be a whole separate account, wouldn't it? It wouldn't come out of cash operating fund. We'd have to set
No,
up-
you'd have to, it's basically an escrow account.
And like I said, 30 to 40 probably a month is what we move in and out, so that would be 30 to 40 more checks that we're continually writing because if they want their refund.
So you're saying we're at 20,000 now,
That's for the year 2009.
so we should see that number start to go down
It should.
within a couple
Because,
years.
like I said, we've been a lot more proactive. We hired a collection agency, and we've taken credit cards, which has helped a bunch. Those three things, I could put, it's still going to be, if I had to guess, I mean, 14, 15,000, I would think, I don't know, still, because of the rentals.
I interrupted you earlier, Dan, you were talking about some of the rentals that are very good, like you mentioned Candy Fleming.
You know,
She's always on
she
top
calls
of it. She's on
weekly
top of
and
it.
checking on people, wanting to know if anybody's behind. And the girls will look it up real quick and let her know, and she'll go beat their door down. And if someone's having a rough time, she'll pay it for them. She's put it in her name for a few months so that people can continue to have water, and then right back off, you know.
So she's good. I mean, she's going to be
And that's why
penalized.
She's the exception of the
Yeah.
rule.
she's going to get 50 or 60 bills now if we do it that way to her, that she's going to have to go through every month, pay.
But some of the people that have multiple homes that they rent around town here, they're going to have a conniption if we...
Oh, yeah.
Dan and I talked about it. Maybe we set up a meeting and invite all of these people to the meeting and explain why we got to do this.
We had a meeting with them years ago.
could we call the landlord? If you know who the landlord is and say, I haven't paid mine for 2 months and you're under green tag me, can we call the landlord and say, hey, your renter's not paying the water bill, and see if they'll help us get it?
Okay. Well, it depends.
I know that's being naive.
Depends.
Believe me, we do.
It depends who the renter is, or the landlord
We
is.
continually call.
Because you would think a responsible landlord,
Gary Meyer sure wasn't responsible when he was up there a couple years ago.
yeah, it was over this
I think that's what
issue.
Dan
Yeah,
suggested.
that's exactly what it was over.
To the
Because I was
property.
afraid we were going to do
The
that.
people it's going to affect the most is rentals, and they're the ones that aren't paying anyway, but, you know...
But for the landlord,
you can't turn that water on, you can't get another renter in there, so.
Can we make a provision
The
if
problem
it's a
is,
rental
Ohio
property
law may be totally
Then
different.
they gotta put up
than what
$100
Indiana
Right,
is.
I mean, it gets us all, if it's
Yeah.
legal or not.
versus all
So-
residents?
I'll take a look at this statute and see what it allows.
Probably not. We can't.
I suggest Dan bring it up tonight so we can kind of discuss it and think about what,
Like the bring it,
Yeah.
Corey Apple, for example, he has all his in his name, and it never has a problem with it.
well, you got a dozen,
Pays him all-
Corey?
Probably got a dozen or so, and he just never
He
complains.
just adds it to the rent.
Right.
You know?
I wonder, I mean, as Belmont Estates, could you add it to the rent? Probably not. Because it's limited,
It's probably subsidized, I'm assuming, out
but I'm
there.
guessing that the rent is at the rate.
But they're allowed to charge.
Well, you can
I
have,
don't know.
Roger's not here, that was HUD out there.
Their utility checks go through Belmont
Don't they
State,
take care of HUD up there?
and what
Yeah.
happens is they cash those utility checks, and guess what they don't, they're not paying their utility bills.
That's wrong, 'cause
And, but I know there was an issue out there where he was holding some of their utility checks and they weren't one of their yards. They come through them, I believe.
Is it,
He is a very cooperative.
If you ever talk to them about the possibility of getting those checks issued jointly to the tenant and the city so that they can't just cash it and then not apply it to the utility bill?
Well, but
If that's some-
3 or 4 different utilities. I don't think it's, it's just not the city utilities. I think they use it for heat, gas,
It
electric.
comes as a one check.
One check?
To be applied toward the utility. If you meet this guideline.
But I believe they just go, okay, they can go cash it.
But wouldn't it make a lot more sense, wouldn't it be easier for them to just be paying us?
Yeah,
The owner of the house is
I would,
You could do a collective bill.
I would sit down with them and see
We
if
might
you
get
can't
John
work
here.
something out.
For the owner, manager.
right, but
John.
manager.
I don't know his last name, I know his name's John.
John Carpenter.
Tim, could we say if it's a rental property, they have to put up $100?
Oh, from.
If you have a,
Prepaid.
if you have an ordinance in place that requires for service, water service,
But
They have
just specifically for rental properties, it sounds like that's most of the problem, is a rental property.
But would that apply with this HUD? This is HUD out there. Belmont Estates is all HUD project, it's separate than a lot of the others. And HUD's got all.
it's Section 8 housing, so you'd have to look at
All
Section
kind
8
of
of the code
regulations
and
there.
see what's allowed and what isn't.
I don't know if Ron would be familiar with it. so I-
To answer
I
your
don't
question
care.
off the cuff,
She
my
might.
guess is no. But, I mean, I'm not saying that categorically because I'd have to look at it.
I just think if we require them to stay in the owner's name, it would be a nightmare for 6 months, but I think once they'll get used to it, it could just be just normal.
I wouldn't just do it though, I think I'd have a meeting,
Yeah, I'll-
invite them all
I'll bring
there,
them all
and say,
in. I'll
here's
show
why
them.
we're doing it, here's what we're suggesting.
Well, maybe the thing to do is, we bring them in, we sit them down, we explain to them what the problem is, we show them that you're a problem here because you got a lot of your tenants that are the ones that we're getting stuck. And if you don't want this to come to be, then you need to take some action on your own to get it accomplished. We're going to monitor this for a year, and if nothing changes, then this is what's going to happen.
And prepare Corey
And
out
then, and
for
give
it.
them the opportunity at
Tell them,
least
hey,
to
this works.
try to remedy it themselves before we step in and do it. You know, if I were somebody that had rental properties, I would appreciate the opportunity to try to solve the problem myself first.
Well, and the other.
I don't want to,
If they want notified, when they go take those green tags out there, I doubt if Ideal or Gary Myers is gonna want 18 phone calls 4 times a month. Okay, this person, this person, this person, this person, it just seems like it might be easier for them to keep it their name. Because if that's the case, then we're gonna have to notify them, because especially with leaning, you have to notify them with a letter, the owner, when they're 60 days late. Well, that's, like I said, that's 130 a month.
Right.
That's letters every time.
Yeah.
You have to stay on it. Because if you don't do it within 20 days after that 60
Yep.
days, it's not lienable.
Right. And
I
in the
think
meantime, they
John
come in and
is-
pay it, so you just spent a bunch of time and effort for nothing.
Well, and then what if they pay $30?
Right.
Well, then now after another 30 days, now it's late again. So now you're sending another letter out.
So it almost drives you to not accept partial payments, you gotta accept all of it.
You know, so,
I think John is right. Let's get a meeting with the majority of the apartment owners. Invite as many as you can, and, you know, just have a discussion.
I think it'd be helpful.
Ask them, hey, you know, if you don't like this, what do you suggest we do? You know, just
Right, what's your
get some open dialogue. And let's-
Candy Fleming and Corey Alford seems like they're
They're
landlords. Maybe
They're
they
very
can
good.
help
And
the
have them
others.
come.
Well, maybe they should be here to
Yeah,
explain how they do it.
This is how we do it and why it works.
Yeah, because they can't expect us to lose $20,000 a year.
right.
And what happens is, we write this stuff off, and then it goes on to the people that pay all the time. And we need the revenue to take care of the expenses, so then the rates go up, because these lost people won't pay.
So, Tim, what do I have to do to have a meeting involved in it? Does it have to be a public? I mean, what?
Well, if you're going to do it in the context of a Board of Works meeting, or where you've got a majority of the board or a majority of the council, then it should be advertised as a meeting of that body, and then you invite people to attend. If you're just doing it privately, where you're not, then you could hold the meeting, you and
I just do it
John,
privately.
Okay.
you don't have to advertise
What
that.
happens if one person doesn't get invited accidentally? You know, I mean, that's,
Going to happen.
Then it will. We won't catch everybody. There's people out there that own 2 houses, you know.
He's just looking
We
for a
don't-
consensus of how to solve the problem.
right.
You might still do a press release to the paper and let them put it in the paper that you're having this. You know, say notices were sent to as many landlords as possible. If we've forgotten anyone, you're welcome to attend.
Yeah.
That's about all you can do.
I mean, 95% are probably 15 or 20 of the landlords, isn't it?
Right.
So, I mean, if you can at least focus on those, that's the majority of where you're writing the property up.
But it seems to me like
Well,
it's all piece, so that needs to be...
Let's check with John Carpenter there, the manager,
Yeah.
and see how that money's dispersed to those people,
Okay.
so we do know.
And then, who can I find out from if it is legal to stay, write an ordinance that says, we are going to make them stay in the owner's names? If that's the choice we make, how do you find out if that's even legal?
Well, I think we can go through American Legal.
Well, I can check that out.
Yeah. You gonna check that?
Yeah, we can check that out.
A question while you're up here. Had a person, walking door to door, they asked why we couldn't accept credit card payments online for their water bill. Do we do that, or is it possible, or not interested?
Well, they do it over the phone. No, we don't have it set up where they do it.
Okay, on
Go
the
online.
website itself.
We're not on bill pay or what,
People can have it direct out of their checking account.
Right.
You can do online bill pay with your bank.
That's what I try to tell Lisa too.
I mean, there's all kinds of options.
I'm like, there's all these other options. We just don't have time to get out to City Hall and put 29-cent stamp on it.
They can call also. They can call.
Call.
I didn't know you could pay it at the park station.
You know, I think
I didn't either.
they have a bill pay option there.
Yeah. You can
Can?
pay water.
You can pay all your bills.
Is there anywhere else?
The park station.
Really? You pay to do it, John.
They have
If you want to pay your AEP bill, they get $2 or whatever for processing it.
it's about like an ATM charge or whatever.
Yeah. It's stupid to pay it there.
Well, I'm
You
old.
can't.
I'm not used to that.
I remember I used to pay out of Gerber's a lot.
Did you?
Yeah, and there was no
He
charge.
doesn't bank.
That's years ago.
I remember I used to pay my NIPSCO bill at the bank, they would accept, the bank would take it.
I have to admit, though, if I buy that box, how many times a day, and I still...
See, I'm
find
cheap.
the mail.
I do too. I'll pay Kent's Insurance and drop off my bill because I don't want to pay 49 cents.
Well, hey, it was up for discussion here. I appreciate your comments. If you come up with something later, just email Dan or call Dan and ask him the question so we can have the answer for these people whenever we have that meeting.
I think we still need a motion.
Oh, yes, excuse me. We do need a motion to accept those write-offs.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Thank you, Dan. Is that all you got?
I remember when I moved to California, I think it was...
What was there, a letter there?
You got that statute you were talking about?
Thanks, Dan. Okay, we need to sign this, guys.
So here is a couple of things. This was an actual account, or a
Bill.
Yeah, again.
here's an actual case for Jefferson. That's that.
Okay.
There's just something else that.
Who gets this, you or?
Yep.
All right, I'll take a look at it.
But
I'll need to write off those letters.
Okay. I'll give you a copy of it.
Thank you, Dan. I really don't have anything else. Anybody got, wants something to bring up?
I've got something.
Yeah, that's John.
Oh.
Approve the holidays.
Oh, yeah, thank you. After that today, and I forgot about it. These are the 2016 holidays. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13?
Yeah. They're the same as always.
Yeah,
but They
same month.
fall on different days, some of them.
How many?
13, New Year's Day, President's Day, Good Friday, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving Day, and the following Friday, Christmas Eve Day, and Christmas Day, and New Year's Eve Day. So those are it. So these are the, from 2016, so we need to make that a matter of record.
So moved.
There you go. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
No, I'm not.
Tim, you got anything?
You had something, Bill, right?
Huh?
Bill has
I'll
something.
need,
Oh, you got something.
I'll need Phyllis's help. I'd like to take the revenue that the police force gathers with the golf carts and put it into what account, Phyllis?
The local law continuing ed fund.
Local law continuing education
The
fund.
police
Right.
department now.
What revenue do we get with the golf
Gun
carts?
permit.
The permits,
Oh.
they inspect them.
Okay.
They do,
I'm with you.
Accident reports, and
Yeah.
copies, all that goes in their local law continuing ed fund.
Where is that money
Then
spent?
they,
Where's that money spent then?
for training, for the police
For training?
And then the golf carts are now going in the general fund just as
Yeah.
miscellaneous revenue.
and I'd like to switch it over to the
Continued ed.
continue,
How much revenue are we talking about? You have any idea?
about $3,000.
I think the ordinance, didn't the ordinance say that it goes, you'd probably have to amend the
Yeah.
golf cart ordinance.
And the reason I'd like to do this is I think, my feeling is that if the police are gathering that money, they'll be a little bit more aware of the golf carts and the golf cart laws and everything. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to make a small booklet of the ordinance, the golf cart ordinance, and give it out to everybody that applies for a license, so they know what our golf cart ordinance is. And we only have one golf cart community now, which is Cross Creek, and I'd like to give everybody in that area one of these booklets, only because I think they need to know that they're not allowed, the kids are not allowed to drive the golf carts, and there are people driving around out in the golf cart or golf course with young kids that are younger than 5 years old sitting on the seat, and I think it's just something that the people are not aware of our ordinance, and I think they need to know that, what our ordinance is. I mean, I'd like to make a small booklet and give it out.
So you get two requests. One is to change the funds going to the general fund and take it to continue net police.
Yeah, then
And
I'd
then
utilize that
Then he has the
money.
reason for it being that he
Yeah.
wants to
Yeah.
come up
And
with
then you use that money.
Right.
I think it's a great idea, Bill.
What's the fund called, please?
Local law continuing ed fund.
Local law continuing education fund?
I move that we have Tim work on amending that
I have a
ordinance.
separate ordinance that is for that, for the local law continuing ed fund.
What do you mean a separate ordinance?
I have a separate ordinance that says what the money's supposed to be used for,
Hmm.
what.
So we have to amend that one too?
To add it into that.
Greg,
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm wondering is if you want to take that money and put it in continuing education fund and start using that as a fund for purchasing, the continuing education fund originally was earmarked for police training.
That's right, that's what it is, unless you want to amend
Okay,
that.
well, the fund that it's in now, could Bill use that money to do this book? If so, I guess maybe we don't need to.
I would think that would be more conducive than taking it
Yeah.
out of the continuing education.
Just take it out of the general fund, is what you're saying. How much did you say, Bill? $3,000?
That's
Well,
what,
that's how much is in
that's
there.
what revenue we get from golf carts.
Every
They-
year?
That they inspect, yeah, for license.
Well, more than I thought.
What is it a year?
But you can find out what those little booklets cost.
$30.
How much, you can get a...
Yeah, I sure. I need to pull the ordinance, the golf cart. I've worked with Phyllis, and we've got the golf cart ordinance the way it should be now. Yeah, I just need to take it down to maybe Charlie and...
And see what 200 of them would cost.
Right,
And then
exactly.
ask,
And let's just take it out of the fund that it's in now.
Exactly.
Not redo
So
the
we're not doing it?
Cancel that, Tim.
We're not going to redo the...
That makes more sense, a lot easier for
I
everyone.
want you to explain about what happened last night with the sculptures.
oh,
I don't know, did everybody hear about the sculpture being stolen?
I did not.
So what are we doing on this?
Oh, I'm
Last
sorry.
subject.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're just going to take the money for this booklet or information.
Oh, we'll look into the cost of a
It's not
book.
going into the fund, the
Not gonna
local
go into the
Okay,
education.
but what appropriation account are we paying this from?
So you can't just say the general fund, because
It's
the
gotta
general
come out
funds,
of
you got to
the
come
appropriate
out.
account.
But I still think,
We don't have any money there.
I still think the inspection and everything, that all the golf cart revenue should go into that continuing
So
education.
you're wanting for the future revenue for golf carts
Right.
when they inspect them go into the local law.
Yeah.
So we will need to amend that to show that. But what Bill wants to do is just do these booklets, which we could pay out of the plan commission's printing and advertising.
Yeah.
or
Once you get a price on
So
it,
you do want
we
to,
are going to amend that the money's going to go
change the
into
revenues,
it.
where
Yeah.
they go, does have to be done by ordinance.
Right. Because I
okay,
think that's where
I'll
it should
just go
go.
with you, Tim, how we actually set it up.
Leave it the way it is.
No, you're going to get more
Sorry,
money in
Tim.
there.
That's all right.
We're not going to take it out to do these booklets. We're just going to put the money in, and then you can use it for training. So, well, it's your advantage.
That's up to the Board of Works.
Okay. We'll get a price on those booklets.
I will.
And then come back, and then we can decide what fund to take that out of. Tim's
Right.
going to change the continuing law enforcement fund to accept the golf cart fee.
well, it's actually going to be two different amendments, one to
Whatever
the
you
golf
need-
cart and one to the
Whatever you need to do
ordinance.
to it. Okay. Greg, you got a question on it?
Sorry, Bill, I see where you're coming from on that, and I agree with that. I'm just afraid that if you hand somebody a pamphlet on the golf cart, the laws of it is probably not going to get read. When I was a kid, and I was like 10 or 12 years old, the Donald Lake down around Noblesville, in order for you to ride and be able to drive the boat, you had to go through a certain certification class. Now, I'm just thinking out loud, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but if we were to say, okay, these kids that are going to play golf in this golf course neighborhood, if they're going to be driving around on golf carts and Bill Carbaugh sees them, they better have been in a little 2-day safety course that, say, maybe Bill puts on. I'd be happy to help you with that. But my point is, Bill, is if you pass them out a brochure, that they might file that thing. If we're actually going to touch these kids, I think that we can brainstorm a little bit, maybe have a little class on it.
I appreciate that, but Bill Carbach does not want to be the golf cart police. I live out there, I refuse to even, unless I see an obvious a small kid driving a golf cart, I might run out and say something to him, and I've done that, but,
I mean, I agree with you that some things need to be policed, and I'm not trying to put it all on you, but I'm just saying if we did like a class or something like that where we made it mandatory for those kids that were going to be playing golf on the golf course and driving around with their clubs, that we train them, and if they get out of line, then we call their parents as a community.
There's got to be an age limit there somewhere.
well, our ordinance says they have to be 16 years old and have a driver's license to drive on the street, so.
I've seen some kids 10 years old out there driving those
Right.
It becomes dangerous, and then what's going to happen is one of those kids is going to get hurt, and they're going to say, "Why didn't you enforce that law?" You know, that's exactly what they're going to throw it right back in our face.
I'm still of the belief that the owner of the golf cart is responsible for that golf cart. So if an adult comes to get a permit, they don't get that permit without having that. If they want their children to drive in that, then that's their responsibility to do that. We shouldn't have to police the children. We should police the owners of the...
Well, let me
I
ask you,
think we're talking about the difference on the road, right?
Right.
Driving it on our street. That's where the ordinance says you have to be 16.
right.
If you're driving around a golf cart, that's...
Yeah, but if you get,
Yeah, but if they're
If
on
you're-
the street with a golf cart, I think is where Bill, I mean, they're in the golf cart.
if you're Dan or
They're on the
Craig, you gotta drive on a street to get to the golf course.
A 10-year-old kid gets in the golf cart and drives it over to his buddy's house.
They do that.
They do that a lot.
But if they even live back in the golf course and want to golf, they've gotta go on city streets.
They don't
Get to the
That's not
clubhouse.
what we're after.
I guess where I'm coming from, Greg, if I think the people need to know what our ordinance is.
I'm okay with what you're saying.
Yeah, they need to know what our ordinance is. And then whatever they do with how they police it is, I mean, that's up to us to, if we see somebody doing something wrong, it's up
Okay.
to us to police it, so.
Well, so, if I understand correctly, each year, do they have to get a sticker or something?
Right. Yeah.
And that's when they pay the $30?
And some people don't even know that.
Okay. Well, instead of passing it out to the neighborhood, why don't you, when they come in,
That's what I want to do.
give them the booklet, and then they're on notice. They know what, they have a copy of the ordinance. If there's a violation, they can't argue, well, I didn't know that.
Exactly.
Quite
And-
honestly,
and-
I-
What's the penalty?
I encourage my officers to
They can be cited.
the ordinance whenever they did that. Now, whether they're all getting out or not.
Yeah. And I think that I agree with what Craig is saying in the sense that it's ultimately up to the parents to make sure that their kids know what the rules are. And if the kids are forcing around on it, ultimately it's the parents that are going to be held accountable. So, if the parents want to let their kids out, on the street and riding around, they can be cited under the ordinance.
Okay. Get a copy of that.
Sure.
And we'll see how much, where it gets the funds
Exactly.
from.
Right.
Okay. Last night we had an incident around the courthouse where a young man came, 44 years old, I guess, right? And tied a chain onto one of our sculptures on the Court Street, 2nd Street, the horse that's anyhow. So he tied it on and drug it, and then he got it about 5 blocks away, then he put it in his truck. So then he came back and he was going to do the same thing to the eagle that's on the north side of the courthouse. He was hooked to it, and when the officers got there to stop him. But, so, it's,
Luckily, the passerby that saw him looking up to the first one was quick enough to call 911. A couple of county deputies were on First Street. He had enough time to take off with it, pull the base about 10 feet down the sidewalk before the sculpture broke off, but he continued to drive several blocks to get pulled up into the back alley where it was dark enough. How he loaded it up, we still don't know. He claims he's by himself, but I personally set that sculpture, so I know it takes
it's heavy.
3 or 4 people to set the thing. So he loads it up in the back of the truck, he tarps it, and he goes back uptown. While the police are following all the scrapes and the asphalt and stuff, because you can tell exactly where he started and where he stopped. They circled back around, he was backed up to the next sculpture, had the chain on him, so he chained to the truck. When the deputies walked up and asked him what he was doing.
How much damage to that sculpture?
It's ruined. It's ruined. That horse is gone.
And there is some damage to
The
second
base.
sculpture.
Is there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we
came down after I talked to him this morning, he looked it over, they're gonna get a hold of it.
Gary Hovey's the one that did this sculpture, and he's going to come over and look and assess the damage. So,
The individual was arrested, he's on several charges, being held on several charges. He talked to me late last night a few times, and then early this morning and throughout the day. They're compiling everything, talking with the prosecutor, but he's facing some pretty serious charges.
It's 6 o'clock at night. I mean, it's
What
pretty busy downtown. It wasn't
You're
even...
kidding me,
it was
6 o'clock at night?
Yeah, yeah.
What's
Last
my
night.
car kit?
Is it a local person?
No, it's Ohio, Bainward area.
The worthless Buckeye.
They are on top of it. The police did a wonderful job. City and county both did a wonderful job getting on top of it, getting them apprehended. Guy in the right mind? I mean,
He had to, my opinion, he had to be drunk or high or maybe both. I'm not
he
sure.
was already gone by the time I got up there, so I'm just going off the name. I couldn't put a face to it.
So yeah, that did happen.
We did return the sculpture to Greg this afternoon.
Greg, it had to be Greg Mendez, the
Yeah.
sculptor, who's a local guy, so he was sick.
He does have it back, so,
Is that his place?
yeah,
Greg?
his mom and dad's. So he met us there
So is
this afternoon.
there any kind of insurance?
Yes, it is insured. It's insured through the city, and then the sculpture tour group reimburses us for that premium. So it is insured.
Thank goodness.
And Phyllis
So they
did
just got-
notify the insurance company.
The artist has to give us an estimate of what it
Quickly,
costs to repair.
McDonald's back turn-in, is that being, it's McDonald's problem? Then I saw there was a wreck there.
That's McDonald's property.
So can we get on to fix it quicker? It's kind of a busy place.
But, yeah, they are taking care of things, so we should.
So, just wanted to report what happened last night. 7:30.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Opposed? Same sign. Motion's carried. Thank you.
Here, I was just complimenting none of the pumpkins are smashed here in the parade.
Yeah, I think it's very good.
Someone hooks a chain up to the sculpture.
I had it.
At the back.
You knew who the most popular person was at the parade?
They're still under statue.
I don't know her. Her name's Candy. All these kids kept yelling her name as walking down the street. Candy, Candy,
Yeah.
Candy!
They yelled at me when I was walking there, and I happened to have a lollipop.
I heard about that.
I went up, Candy, get it, Candy. See, I didn't have this one. Get it out of my mouth.
I saw you do that. Hey, I'll go, ooh.
Hey, Bob and Bob, did you guys hear about the sculpture and everything? Did you? Okay.
Did they actually get it?
Yeah, it's ruined. It's just... It's ruined, yeah. Yeah, $14,000 it's insured for, and then the base is busted up, so $500.
The horse?
The horse, Richard Court in second.
Just back the people up to it and tried to steal it?
Yeah, he pulled it. He hooked it up to the sculpture itself, and then when he pulled it about 10 feet, and finally it broke loose from the concrete base. And he drove it another 5 blocks. He went down Court Street to 3rd over to Madison over to 4th, and around the service complex somewhere. He finally stopped. And,
Was he drunk?
I don't know. My opinion, he's drunk or high, or both. I don't know. Yeah. After that, after he got it in his trunk, he came back and hooked up to the Eagle on the north corner. He's going to get another one. And that's when the cops showed up and asked him what he was doing.
And it was 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah, it wasn't like it was 1 or 2 in the morning.
I hope JB hands it to him heavy.
I do too.
It happened to be Greg Mendez, the sculptor.
Yeah,
but he's
we need it, I think.
Let it be known. Don't mess with our sculptures.
It's insured.
JB will be pissed.
Okay, we're still
All out there, man.
Call the meeting to order. Roll call, Phyllis.
Ken Collier.
Here.
Bill Crump.
Here.
Matt Dyer.
Here.
Charlie Fulenkamp.
Here.
Ken Meyer.
Here.
I'd like to invite everyone to stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The minutes of the October 20th meeting were all emailed. Do we have any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Make a motion to accept them as emailed.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. We also had a special meeting on October 27th. Those minutes were sent out, is that right, fellas? I haven't had a chance to read those, so if so, do we have any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. The last meeting, we had our two-year seated plan. We approved ordinance 2015-16 on its first and second reading, and it's up for third and final reading, if you so desire.
Move that ordinance number 2015-16 be placed in its third reading by short title.
Second. Motion second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same
John had to
sign.
read